ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहत स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्श्रेयस्यानिश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्मयेधि वेदस्य मारिस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्ददामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवाग्वं स्वस्तिनूभिः यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वममृतम् अस्मि द्रविणग्वं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षतः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Narayan, Narayan. Welcome to the class.
Happy Janmashtami.
Yes, happy Janmashtami to everyone.
Thank you, and same to all.
Thank you.
Happy Janmashtami.
Happy Janmashtami.
Tomorrow's Janmashtami, na?
Monday, Tuesday.
Monday.
Yeah. So for me here, like, in service apartment, I had to celebrate it this time.
Yeah, the physical environment doesn't matter, right? Nice. Okay. So in the last class, we had gone up to Shloka 9, start with Shloka 10 today. So now, as we said before, right, chapter 15, Purushottam Yoga, is a very important chapter. It is one of the 3 chapters that we have been guided by our Gurujis to memorize. It is the last chapter, even though it is in the middle of Gyan Yoga, it is the last chapter which deals with the philosophy of the Gyan. and it encapsulates and takes us a little bit deeper into who Bhagwanji really is, right? He is called the Uttam Purush, the best Purush. And here the concept of Purush will be used as well. Purush refers to um, our sense of our basically it's our willpower, right? Ichha Shakti. Our ability to use our Ichha Shakti to do the dharma is the Purush. Okay. So the Purushottam Yoga is to use this Gyan to connect to the ultimate. And in the last class, what we understood was Bhagwanji was now talking about this supreme state. Right before that, he told us with a great analogy what this real world is. Right? What is this world? How to understand him? So that once we really understand what the world is, then we will start to lose um, our fascination with this material world because we know the truth for it. And then he tells us what kind of a person who understands this in a real way, what are his characteristics, right? The important characteristics of this person is that he is free from pride, he's free from expectations, he's free from involvement in the senses, he's free from desires, he's free from the dualities, and is constantly dwelling only in spirituality. He's only thinking about the Gita Gyan, he's only thinking about how to implement it in his life, and he's constantly thinking about what this particular VBGP is trying to tell me. What is Bhagwanji trying to teach me through this VBGP? Right? So these are the characteristics of a person who attains the supreme state. Now, then he goes on to tell us a bit more in detail about himself and how is individualized self related to him. Right? So the individualized, he declares in Shloka 6 and 7 that uh, so in Shloka 6, he basically tells us that all the effulgence that you see around you, right? All the brightness that you see around us is, I am beyond all of that, right? I am beyond all of that because I am the source of all of that effulgence. Whether that effulgence you see through sun or moon or fire, they get their effulgence from me. So they don't reach my abode. I am beyond them. An individualized self is nothing but an inseparable part of me. The individualized self is an inseparable part of Paramatma. Okay. And then he says, okay, so now what happens to this individualized self, which is part of me? And Bhavanji says that the individualized self, when it assumes that it is under the influence of the gunas, when it takes on the nature, that means it becomes under the influence of Raju, comes under the influence of the three gunas, then it attracts to itself. What does it attract to itself? It attracts to itself the subtle body. Okay. What is the subtle body? The subtle body is composed of intellect, mind, chitta, all your senses, and your ego. This constitutes the subtle body. The subtle body wraps itself around the Jivatma, and this entire combination is what stays, right? Of this, the eternal Atma, the Jivatma, is eternal. It never not was. Okay, it never was not. Just as Bhagwanji, it is an inseparable part of Bhagwanji. So Bhagwanji is Anadi. So Jivatma is Anadi. The Maya is Anadi as well. But this subtle body can be dissolved. Until the time it does not dissolve, in all its changing forms, it stays with the Jivatma. What comes and goes more constantly is the body. And hum log just from the point of reference that we see, we always think because we are so engrossed and so attached to this physical body, even when we start to think that this body is not real and Jivatma is real, we still use the wrong words. We say, Atma aayi, Atma chali gayi. Actually, Atma does not come and Atma does not go. Atma stays exactly where it always was. The body comes and the body goes. And this body coming and body going, why do we think that it is the Atma that is coming and going? It is this reference point is the same as when you're inside a moving train. You're sitting inside a transient moving object and you think that the platform outside is moving. You think that the trees outside are moving. Actually, the platform stays where it always was. It is the train that is moving and sees one platform after another, right? That is the same concept. So since we attach ourselves to this body, so we feel like the subtle body is coming and going. In reality, the Jivatma and the subtle body always stays. And it is the physical body that comes and goes. Right? Another example to understand this point of reference is when we are on the earth, we think it is the sun that rises in the east and sets in the west. And those are the words we use as well, right? Sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. In reality, sun is not the one that's rising. It is the earth that is revolving around, right? But our point of reference makes us feel like we're stationary and everything else is revolving around us, right? But we all know from Gyan that that is a wrong perception. It is just a perception. It's an illusion. Correct? It's an illusion. And we all understand that through our Gyan. Similarly, it is an illusion to think that the Atma comes and goes somewhere. It goes nowhere. It always is where it was. It does not change. The body is a transient piece which comes and goes. And it is this Jivatma that avails of all the senses. It avails the mind. It avails the intellect. It avails the ego. For what? For achieving its purpose. The purpose with which it takes on the subtle and eventually the gross body. For most of us, our purpose is one, to go back to Him. The realized saints, when they come and take on a body, they have certain specific other purposes. Someone may come for a specific purpose. They will come, they'll take that, they'll do that purpose, and they will let go. The senses are there. This subtle body, the gross body is there to be able to walk this journey. Okay. Without the body, there is no way for us to make any changes to walk the path. So once the subtle body leaves the gross body, it stays in that form. And at some stage, it will take on a higher form of a body like that of Dev or Kinnar or Gandhar, or it may take on a lower body, a plant, an animal, an insect, right? Or it may take on a human body. In each of those bodies, it takes on that body for a very specific purpose, right? I have certain prarabdha जिसका भोग करना है. I need to extinguish that prarabdha. Okay, I have to extinguish a pleasure related prarabdha. I will take on the body of a certain higher realm, right? I have to I have to extinguish and exhaust the prarabdha which is related to a negative vasana. Then that pain that I have to go through or that vasana I have to fulfill, I will take on the body of the animal where it is in the fastest possible manner for me to extinguish, right? So I will take on that animal body. And I will take on a human body when I'm ready to exercise my willpower. When I'm ready to exercise my Ichha Shakti to go on the path for self-realization. Right? So this is the only body where I will be able to exercise my willpower. Okay. Now, this is how but without this body, right, none of your prarabdha will get extinguished. So you need the body, whichever body it may be, the higher realm, the lower realm, or the middle realm, right? You need the body to get rid of your prarabdha, to get rid of the baggage that we have accumulated. Only when we have gotten rid of entire baggage do we get free to fly off to Him and to merge with Him, right? So we need the body. And we specifically need the human body because it's the only body where we have choice. And this is the only body through which moksha is achieved. Okay, na? And without the body, basically the subtle body doesn't change. Every time we acquire a body, the subtle body undergoes change depending on whether we have done bhog or whether we have done yog, right? The subtle body, the composition changes based on our actions, right? Our habits change, our antakaran changes, our chitta, the impressions we have on our chit changes, which basically means our prarabdha gets extinguished or gets added on to, right? All of that happens when we take on certain bodies. Okay? So then the question is, okay, so everything revolves around Jivatma, right? Everything is powered by Jivatma, and Jivatma is nothing but Bhagwanji, which means Jivatma has no limitations. It is Anadi, it is Anand, it has no starting, it has no beginning, it has no end, right? It is beyond all the dualities. Then how is it that it is so close to me? It is the core of me, and yet I don't recognize it. That's a big question. Why do I not recognize myself? I don't get up in the morning and I think that I am this limitless Anand Anadi thing, right? I'm not that. I'm full of all my limitations. I'm constantly beleaguered by all the BBGPs around me. People constantly are provoking me into various types of actions, right? So why is it that we forget that we are divinized people, right? Where is that divinity inside of me? Why do I fail to connect to it? And that is the subject matter of the next shloka, shloka 10. Okay. Sanjita, will you read with us?
Connections. How does one fail to recognize one's own divinity with which one lives all the time? The Lord explains.
Utkramantam sitam vapi
Utkramantam stitam vapi
kunjanam va gunanvitam
Vujjanam va gunanvitam
vimudhananupashyanti
Vimudhananupashyanti
pashyanti jnanachakshushaha.
Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. The deluded do not see him who departs, resides, and united to the gunas experiences the objects, but those with the eye of discernment do see him.
Yeah. So he's very clearly telling us in this shloka that it isn't as if you cannot see me, right? He's the greatest open secret, as we had learned, right? In the second shatak. He's the greatest open secret. He's out here for us to discover ourselves. But everyone cannot see him, even though he's out there in the open for everyone to recognize. Right? He's saying there are people who can see me. Who are those people? These are the people who have a discernment inside of them. And because of the discernment, because of the vivek inside of them, they have an inner eye. The inner eye of Gyan has dawned on him, and hence they are able to recognize him every single minute. But those that are deluded by this world, those that are constantly mired and involved with their senses, those that are mired in the illusion that is created by the Maya, those guys cannot see him. Why can they not see him? Because when you're mired in the sansar outside, when you're mired and constantly involved with the senses, what do senses do? Like the horses, they are going after the objects of their interest, right? So because they are constantly going after the objects of their interest, they are always looking outside. And there is no time for us to look inside. God is not outside, he's inside of us. The divinity is inside of us. If we recognize the divinity inside of us, then we can see him everywhere outside too. But what is required? What is required is control over the senses so that they don't have control over us, that we are their master. And with that control, we turn our eyes inwards, we turn our ears inwards, we turn all our senses inwards. So now we are watching ourselves and our own mind rather than other people, right? My intellect is judging what I am doing, right? My mind is now involved in figuring out what am I feeling. not what others are feeling and what they are thinking. My ears are listening to my own self, my own chatter inside myself, right? I am close to experiencing what I am experiencing and fully experiencing and acknowledging how I'm feeling, right? It's an internal journey. A person who successfully does this is able to see the divinity inside of him. Okay, let's read.
Seeing the individualized self with the eye of discernment. In this shloka, the Lord says that divinity in the shape of the individualized self abides in the body and while abiding appears to experience sense objects by uniting with the three gunas. He departs also from the body when the body ceases to be of use to him. Even then, few are aware of the divinity within their own true self. The reason is that generally the involvement of most people with sense objects creates a delusion in their minds, which renders them incapable of cognizing the self. As against this, one whose eye of discernment has been opened by the perception of reality becomes fit for cognizing the individualized self as being identical with the supreme self. This discernment comes to the individualized self in spite of being equipped with a physical form and receiving the stimulations of happiness and unhappiness flowing from perception of sense objects. For example, a child thinks the reflection of the moon in the water to be the real moon and sometimes tries to catch it. But a grown up person knows the moon seen in the water to be only a reflection of the real moon in the sky and does not get lured by the reflection.
So there are a few things here. The first one is uh, the word discernment. What does that refer to? Right? This is this is what is also known as, and Tune has discussed this in the past, called Vivek Buddhi. Being able to and understanding what is real and what is not real. And this discernment comes from two, two sources. One, the right knowledge, which is what we are reading. And the second is putting the right knowledge into practice by experiencing it for yourself, experiencing it to be true. Once you start doing both of these things, your discernment becomes stronger and stronger. And then you're able to experience, and we've discussed this, mano fir jano, first implement it and you will start seeing miracles in your life. You will start seeing glimpses of Bhagwanji all around you. And that's what this discernment brings you. The second, which is the example that is given, right? In that example, the child who is looking at the reflection of the moon, uh, the child is Arjun, and the child is us. Okay, uh, the the reflection is the unreal. So in our case, it is our relatives that we're attached to. It is to the sense objects we're attached to. It is to our likes and dislikes that we're attached to, that we try and hold on to. But it's not real. It's just a reflection. The real is somewhere else. But our whole focus, our whole mind is so attached to things in sansar that that is what displaces our entire discernment, ability to do discernment. Because we attach ourselves to the lower form. Once you let go of these attachments, you will see remarkable progress in your discernment. It's related.
So
But
going back to Shlok 5, right? What all you need to give up to open up this eye of discernment, which will allow you to see this divinity inside of you and know that you are this divinized person. It's clearly shown in Shloka 5, right? You have to free yourself from what? We have to free ourselves from pride, right? Whatever that. What is pride? Kartapan. I am the doer. That's your pride, right? I am the doer. I am the one who's getting everything done here, right? So your kartapan. Then expectations from people, too many expectations from people that tie us down all the time, right? They don't set us free. We have to free ourselves from the material desires and replace it with a desire for our highest good, right? Desire for our highest good. For example, as a smaller example, we all like to eat food, right? It gives pleasure to everyone, right? When you're trying to lose weight, then you attach yourself to the desire of a healthier you. And that desire will replace the desire of the pleasure you seek from the food that you're eating. And every time there is a temptation of a food, what do? You lock yourself into the desire of why you're giving this up. You go back to the desire of a healthier you, which is why you're giving this up. And that reminder keeps you away from giving into the temptation. Right? Similarly, when we start to work towards reminding ourselves constantly of what is my highest good, what is the highest desire, that of self-realization, when I'll be free from all this pain, from all the suffering, when I can be free from all expectations and I'm completely free to fly and express myself and be happy and constantly be in that state of bliss. That is what I'm looking for. It doesn't matter. Nobody has a hold on me any longer. Nobody can provoke me into an action. I will do an action as per my own free choice. Right? That is your highest goal. That is your highest attainment. Imagine yourself like that free bird, that eternal free bird that's constantly in a state of like happy mood. That desire should replace every other small desire. And every time you get tempted by your senses, this is what you need to come back to. So freedom, I wouldn't say free from desires, but rather replacement of desires. But definitely free from expectations of people, free from pride, free from dualities, where you're able to. And how do you get yourself free from dualities? By constantly reminding this is not real. This is not real. This too shall pass. The pleasure that comes will be followed by the pain and suffering. That pain will be followed by pleasure just as surely as day follows night, night follows day. Right? That cycle is unending. It is part of this world. That is who we need to be to open that eye of discernment. And if we are not able to realize the divinity within ourselves, we have to go back to this shloka and find where am I getting stuck here? Is it the ego right now? Is it a certain desire that's clouding my judgment? Is it a certain involvement in a certain particular sense that's deluding me? Right? What is causing me to not be able to see God in a certain VBGP? What is causing me to get stuck in this mortal world? This is where we go back to Shloka 5. Right here. We'll move on. Kavita, will you read this?
Okay. Connection. A question arises as to whether cognition of the individualized self is possible only by making an effort. The Lord replies,
Yatanto yoginaschainam
Yatanto yoginaschainam
Pashyantatma anyavasthitam
Pashyantyatma anyavasthitam
Yatanto apyatatmanaha
Yatanto apyakritatmanah
Nainam pashyantya chetasaha
Nainam pashyanta chetasah. Yogis striving for perfection perceive him as abiding in their hearts. But the ignorant person who have not purified the hearts do not see him. However, they may strive.
This is a very
Important.
question, right? The question is, how much effort is required? Is it like very, very difficult? Right? Now we know all of this, but like, is it very difficult to see him? Do I have to like really like kill myself to do this? Like, how do I do it? What amount of effort is required to perceive him? That is the question being answered here.
So out here, the word perfection doesn't mean perfection in action or perfection in outcome. But striving for perfection means striving for Bhagwanji, right? And the answer here also he says is you really only perceive Bhagwanji inside of you because everything outside is Maya. It is not real. Right? We've discussed this many times. There is no such thing as reality. It's your perception of that makes it real. So everything that happens in this world is actually happening inside of you. That is where you experience Bhagwanji.
Importance of self-purification. In this shloka, the Lord emphasized that discerning person whose hearts are purified by constant scriptural studies, spiritual contemplation and meditation, and who strive for perception of the reality, experience the divinity in their own selves. This shows that an aspirant have a strong determination to realize the self as the aim of the life has to strive relentlessly to experience the self within. But one with a heart is not pure and who has not calmed their agitations of the mind by devotion and dedicated actions cannot perceive the self even while making strenuous effort for it. The reason is that on hearing the supernatural powers gained by the meditation, some people are tempted to take to this highly pure and noble path of self realization without purifying their minds by sustained practice of karma yoga or devotion. Realization of the self is the apex of the pyramid built on the solid foundation of purification of the mind, and it is impossible to attain it without first laying the strong foundation. The blemishes which taint the mind and make it impure are, in fact, not a part of the self. They arise due to the erroneously worldly beliefs. Constant contemplation of the elemental self helps in the removal of these blemishes, and the mind becomes pure by unflinching devotion to the Lord. But if the hope of perceiving the self is entertained only by satisfy some ideal curiosity without purifying the mind, the efforts are bound to go vain.
So let's discuss this a little bit. Uh, so if everything happens within us, and if Bhagwanji is within us, why can't we experience him 24/7? If it's all within us, why are we not able to sit down and really just experience it? Why is it so difficult to experience it? And the answer is your mind. Our minds are too busy in what was, what is going to be, or even if it's present, it's too busy on the body. It's too busy in samsara. Without quietening that mind, you will never experience the subtle within us. And the capital S self, who we are, that is subtle of the subtlest thing in the world. Right? So even people who do constant meditation and practice, what this shloka is saying, and you should underline this line, realization of the self is the apex of the pyramid built on sound foundations of purification of the mind. And it is impossible to attain it without laying the strong foundation. And what is that strong foundation? Seva, karma yoga, bhakti, jnana. Having the right knowledge, putting that right knowledge into practice, which is doing lok sangra and acting like a karma yogi, being a karma yogi, and devoting everything to Bhagwanji. And when we do this, what is the result? Mari antakaran ki shuddhi. Every time we give up our result, every time we give up our action, every time we use ourselves as a vessel to talk about God, we are being humbled. Our ego is being humbled. And as our ego gets humbled, our antakaran becomes stronger, becomes clearer to reflect Bhagwanji. The dirt that is there becomes clearer and clearer and clearer.
So the original question here, right? Ki, if I make an effort, do I get to see Bhagwan Ji? Right? If I strive for it, will I be able to see Bhagwan Ji? And how much effort do I have to make? The answer here is very clear कि यार मेहनत तो करनी है. तप के बिना nothing will be achieved. Tap is very important. But just because you make tap does not qualify you with tap alone to be able to achieve self-realization. Tap alone is not enough. Tap हम सब करते हैं. Constantly, this world is full of tap. There is nobody who does not do tap. Think of anybody in this world, right? The amount of effort children put in for their education, it's indescribable amount of stuff that is required of them, right? PLSE just finished. See the amount of effort kids have put in Singapore in that age bracket. The amount of effort kids put into getting into various examinations, your IITGs or AIDS, or like the amount of effort they put in their boards,
Or we
right?
put in jobs.
Yeah, and the amount of stuff we put in our jobs on a daily basis, correct? The amount of stuff we put into like
House.
maintaining a house, right? Into maintaining our relationships,
Our
right?
bodies.
People who are throwing parties or socializing, everything is full of stuff. Is there anything that does not require a certain amount of stuff? They're constantly working really, really hard. There are people who you have seen who will do a lot of control over their senses. They deploy a lot of control over their senses to say build a good body, right? See the bodybuilders, see any of the athletes, right? How much self-abnegation, how much control over their senses, how much disciplined life do they live? Waking up at a certain time, doing a certain type of disciplined workout, eating only certain types of food, exercising, full control over the quality of food and the type of food that they are intaking, at what time they are intaking, the amount of sleep they have to undergo, right? But does that make sure that every bodybuilder, everybody with a great body has self-realized themselves? No. Not at all. Correct? So tap alone does not qualify you to realize Bhagwanji. The most important thing is the level of antakaran ki shuddhi we have that Apurna was explaining. Okay, tap is a baseline. Without that, you don't go anywhere. But now we are talking about quality of tap, the purpose of tap, and that purpose of tap will determine your antakaran ki shuddhi. Why is that important? Because the law of nature is exercised at all times. And the law of nature dictates that you do certain type of tap, you will get certain type of vibhuti. Okay? And vibhutis are called chandalinis. They are mohinis, right? The vibhutis come and they ensnare us. Every tap you will do will give you some vibhuti. Okay? You do a lot of hard work in your studies, you will get good marks. There is no doubt about it, right? How much good marks depends on the quality of a lot of other things, but you will get good marks, won't you? If you study really well, you work really hard on a project, you will get some sort of results. You will get certain amount of recognition within your team members who will say, yeah, this person is always there, always working hard. I mean, these are outcomes. You are present, you will get results, right? You go to gym every day, you eat right every day. Everything will eventually give you a good body, right? All of these aspects will give you a good body, a good looking body, a beautiful body, a strong body, an agile body, depending on what type of stuff you are doing for your body, correct? Now what happens is you get a good body, you get very intelligent, you are able to really answer questions, you do a lot of meditation, you might be able to even develop certain supernatural powers where you're able to see things that others are not able to. You develop a very strong intuition, right? So you're able to see things, you're able to perceive things that others are not able to. All these vibhutis, now if you are not doing it with the right thought process, these vibhutis will ensnare you into a sidetrack. So think of this long journey as like this main highway to God. On this main highway, as you walk along, you have to do a lot of different types of stuff. At the end of that stuff, you will get a certain vibhuti, right? Small vibhuti, big vibhuti, blah, 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 right? So you will get these vibhutis. Now these vibhutis have their own power. They have their own chal. They have their own direction. If you are not strong enough, then what happens? You will flow with these vibhutis. Okay, You develop a beautiful body, you develop a strong body, your ego will get fed into it. Look, I look so nice, I look so strong, I look so I don't know, powerful, or like whatever, right? And now
Or
you
I'm
will
so
spend-
successful, I'm so rich,
Yeah,
I'm
so
such a
rich,
good
I'm
husband, I'm such a good
correct,
this,
correct.
I'm such a good parent, all that. So if you
Everything
don't do it
feed-
with, if you don't do it with the seva bhav,
Yeah.
you're doing it just to feed the ego.
Correct.
And if you do it with feeding the ego, the pyramid is not built.
So what happens is one is when your ego gets fed, your mind is not strong, right? Your mind is not free of its likes. You don't have control over your intellect does not have full control over your mind. Mind ka kya dharma hai? Likes and dislikes, right? Oh, I'm getting praise here. You will go along that. Oh, I'm not getting praise there. I'm not getting enough recognition there. So chuck that. So you will flow with the vibhuti and go onto one trajectory of the highway now. You will become a very successful person in that one thing where you put a lot of stuff, and you will get its outcomes, right? All the prarabdha, you will accumulate your prarabdha along the way, and you will also, what do you call it? Uska bhog karenge hum log, right? What is the word that you bhog kar rahe hain? You will, no, not consume, you will experience them, right? In this life or in the next life. But you're no longer on the highway to Bhagwan Ji. Now you're on some side road. You've forgotten your path. Or maybe you will remember along the way, then you'll come back on the pathway here. So tap alone is not enough. When the vibhutis come to you because of tap, your ability to remember that this vibhuti has come for a purpose, and I must use this vibhuti towards that purpose of achieving my moksha, achieving liberation, to reach Bhagwanji. Every vibhuti is being given to you for a purpose. You forget that purpose and you flow with that. That's where you lose the plot. So that is why antakaran ki shuddhi is supremely important. That antakaran ki shuddhi is the basis which will provide that strong foundation, so that when that vibhuti comes with a wave, it does not sweep you away with its current. It comes, you experience it, you control it, you tame it, and then you take it along with you. You get what I'm saying? It is not easy to control the powers that come with the vibhutis. They are very strong. Money, when it comes to you with a wave, it is easy for people to lose their mind. Power when it comes, success when it comes, fame when it comes, right? When praise comes, criticism comes, right? On a day-to-day basis, somebody says something nice to us. All of these have power, right? And these vibhutis will then take us with their current unless we are anchored. We are anchored to the reality. And that anchoring of reality will happen through constant practice of Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Without Bhakti Yoga, what happens? All that Karma Yoga will only end up feeding your ego. With only Bhakti Yoga, what happens? You go into the rigmarole of blind faith, and you've stopped using your brain. None of this will lead to antakaran ki shuddhi. It will only create more blemishes and more baggage. So we have to have Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga. That is why you have the first 12 chapters before Gyan Yoga starts. Okay. These two create the foundations. The Karma Yoga, 6 chapters, next 6 chapters, Bhakti Yoga, mix them up. Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga creates that strong foundation which will help us cleanse our antakaran. Now, with this cleansed antakaran, when we do the tap, that will lead us down the path of self-realization. Otherwise, we will do the tap for all wrong reasons. I won't say wrong reasons, you will just do it for all other reasons, and you will achieve those other reasons. You will just not achieve self-realization. Purpose determines everything. What is the purpose of this karma? What is the purpose of the tap? What is the purpose of the gyan? Make sense? Clear?
So just to add to this, right? This manifests itself in very subtle ways, right? Like one example for us to be aware of is all of us attend now Gita class for 3 years to ho gaye. 3 years se we're doing it, we're listening to Gita. I'm sure all of us have gone and implemented it on someone else. Ye nahi karna. You should do it like this, right? But Gita, if we are not implementing in our own lives through our action, is also going to result in our ego being inflated. Knowledge that is not being put into action. You read business books and you don't have a way to implement it, or you don't implement it as a leader in your organization, it is doing nothing but feeding your ego. Gyan has no purpose but to clean our actions and clean our antakaran.
Which will
And
only happen
spiritual
by
ego is one of the,
worst egos.
not just the verses, you have the Gyan, but you're not choosing not to implement it. So the prarabdha they're collecting is 10 times more than the ignorant person who does not have the knowledge.
Actually, it is irredeemable, one of those really irredeemable cases. Because अगर आपके पास ज्ञान नहीं है, तो चलो ज्ञान दे दिया, अब implement कर लो, correct? I didn't know, now I know, so now I can take the appropriate action. But having the gyan and then not translating it into action is the worst type of disease.
That's why,
Because you think you know, you become the know-it-all.
that's why daily swadhyay, reading every day, is very important because it forces you to think about practicing every day. Otherwise, today you will hear, today you will implement, tomorrow you will implement. By the time Thursday, Friday comes, the charge is gone. You're gone back with your ways of being. Daily structure is very important to you, for you to bring it into your day and for you to reflect about what did you do yesterday that was potentially not in line with the principles. If you're not doing that, it's just fueling ego, which is the opposite of what we do. Yeah.
You read the next one. Smita, will you read with us?
Connection. Embarking on an exposition of His Eminence as the essence underlying all experiences, the Lord says,
Yadadityagatam tejah
Yada dityam yagat, yada, yada,
Dityagatam tejah
yada dityam gatam tejah,
Jagat bhasayate khilam
Jagad bhasayate khilam,
Yat chandramasi yat jagno
Yat chandramasi yat chagno,
Tat tejau vidhi mamakam.
Tat tejo vidhi mamakam.
So we had in chapter in the second shatak, Bhagwanji had told us about how he is present in everything, right? But he was referring to what things? If you would remember, they were all things that were a little bit grosser in nature, right? So you would talk about mountains and stuff like that, right? And then he talked about the subtler aspects, right? So in chapter 6, he had told us everything that happens in this world, it happens within his light. Without that light, nothing can move. So the most important visualization of him in this world is light and warmth, which comes from three sources: the sun, the moon, and fire. And in Shloka 6, he tells us that these three don't reach my abode. I am beyond them. And then he says that they receive their effulgence from me. Now, at a much subtler level, what it means is the sun or the Surya it powers our eyes. Our ability to see is Surya. Moon governs our mind. Okay, everything we experience is governed by the power of the moon. All right. So the sun in us is our ability to see. The moon in us outside in the world, you'd see moon. Inside of us, that moon is our ability to experience everything we experience. Our mind is the moon. And the fire is the god of Vani, everything we say. And he powers all these functions, everything we see, everything we say, everything we experience. He's giving this as an example. I power everything. Right? Let's read.
So this is the subtler part here to understand also is when we experience results, right? When we experience, oh, our children are doing well, or when we experience when our spouses are doing well, job mein promotion, or the result I got, the client I landed, when we experience all of that, that is when we need to remember the effulgence is him. It's not us. We did our tap to clean our own antakaran, but the effulgence is his grace. If our kids behaving a right way, that is his grace. If our jobs are going well, it's his grace. Everything is, the effulgence is him. Don't ever forget that. If you miss that, then you again attach it back to your ego. Then the ego will say, boss, I can do this again. I'll show you how to do this. Oh, I'll tell you how to raise your children. Because I'm a better parent than you. Right? And we have these conversations very casually as families and as couples. Oh, we are better hosts. Oh, we are better parents than others. Oh, look at them. Look at the way they did it. We do it much better. Or they did it. Or sometimes we put ourselves down. Oh, we don't do it as well as somebody else. Their house is so much cleaner. All of this is now us operating at ego level. Anything that you experience where you experience love is him. Right? Right. We can continue reading.
The effulgence of the sun, which illuminates the whole world, and that of the moon as well as that of the fire, know that effulgence to be mine. The all illuminating light of the self. In this shloka, the Lord describes the effulgence of the sun, moon, and fire to be born of the effulgence of the consciousness of the self. As is well known, the physically visible light is only part of much larger radiation which, the Lord says, emanates from the consciousness of the self. In fact, all manifestations, subtle or gross, emanate from the self. The difference in the subtle and the gross is not so much material as that of form. The five principles of insentient matter, namely space, gaseousness, energy, fluidity, and solidity, represent progressively grosser and grosser entities in which space is the subtlest and solidity is the grossest. The self is far more subtle than space and is beside consciousness itself. This concept will be found to be of use in understanding the succeeding three shlokas.
So, I think we've discussed this in the past as well. What was the button?
When I opened the door because I had to close the window.
Oh, okay. I think we're done with that. Sorry, we have a new addition to our family, and do you want to introduce you? So one thing that becomes clear to us, right? The effulgence point, beauty exists where he is. So if his consciousness is what we are attracted to everywhere, whenever we see beauty. So perfect example is a human being. A human being, when the Jivatma is in the body, you can experience and you see beauty. That same body, without the soul, there is no beauty left. No matter how physically good looking the person was, the beauty is gone. Which means the beauty comes from him. The effulgence is always him. And that is our opportunity. Every time we see something we find endearing, it is him who is shining through. right? Do you want to add anything to this?
He basically just explained that he's basically part of every aspect. Can you just yes. Figure it out. It's not really keeping things. Just this one real. Sorry.
So the other thing is for us to see the effulgence, connect it back to the first shlok we read, which is you need discernment. That is where Vivek Buddhi comes in. For you to be able to discern that this is the beauty that Bhagwanji is reflecting, rather than what you associate with your creation, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your job or children or whatever.
Okay, so from here, basically, he's reminding us of the second shatak that we read, where we did the Vibhuti Yoga, we talked about the greatest open secret, and then he talked about how to recognize him in the world around us, right? And in that, he told us very clearly, here, I am part of everything and everybody. I exist in everything. Now he's talking to us about how he powers everything, right? At an even subtler level. And he's used these concepts of light and warmth because these are the subtlest things that we experience, right? You cannot touch it, you cannot taste it, you cannot feel it, right? Sorry, I mean, you can feel the warmth, but you can see the light, but you don't really see the light as much as you see things being, you see other things that are illumined by light, right? So it is even past that. You get, it's like getting meta here. You don't really see light. You see things being illumined in light, right? So that sort of stuff. Now he's saying, I power even that. So think about how subtle he is, because he powers even that light. Now use that concept to understand the next few shlokas, where he's talking about how he is at the source, he is at the root of everything that we feel, we experience, that right? And at a both subtle level and at a gross level, right? Gross levels is being explained in the shlokas, and we look at the bhavat, like at a closer to us, like Surya represents the eyesight that we have, or our ability to see. And again, at a further subtle level, when we see our ability to see, it is not just what we see with these physical eyes, right? It is what we see with our Gyan Chakshu. It is what we perceive with our mind. It's what you see which is not apparent. When you deduce, you see things, correct? You see a pattern, but you don't really see a pattern. Like you can see a physical pattern, but you also see a pattern in your head, right? That whole ability to perceive, that ability to see is powered by him. And sun's energy inside of us represents that. राइट योगा में कहते हैं ना कि सुबह सुबह वो जो नया नया सूरज निकला होता है उसमें उसको देखना चाहिए, अर्घ चढ़ाना चाहिए. All of those things are because the power of that early morning suraj, it helps our eyes, but not just physical eyes. That whole action of doing surya namaskar, that surya ko arg chadana, all of those things will affect us internally too, because we develop a certain discipline, right? It powers our ability to perceive. It sharpens that ability to perceive. Similarly, then moon, we said, right? Everything we think, we feel. Everything we think and everything we feel. So this is how we will go to other shlokas as well. So let's move on. Ritu, would you like to read this?
The only last point I want to say is, if you think about it, without the moon and the sun and fire, there is nothing but darkness also. Which means if you're not engaging with Bhagwanji and his vibhutis and his creation, and if you're not seeing him, then you are being, that is hell, that is darkness.
Correct.
That is
So
the
everything we
suffering.
see and
That is
perceive
the
is-
suffering and
Correct.
stress with which we live our lives, because we're refusing to see him in everything.
That is true. Those are the most important things that we have to track, right? What we see, what we perceive, what we say, and then how we think and how we feel inside. Is it feeling?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Connection. Passing on to the emanation of the gross entities, the Lord says,
Kama Vishya cha Bhutani
Kama Vishya cha Bhutani
Harayamyam Harayamyaham Ojasa
Dharayamyaham Mojasa
Harayamyaham Ojasa
Dharayamyaham Mojasa
Pushnami Choshadhi Sarvaha
Pushnami Chaushadhi Sarvaha
Somo Bhutva Rasatmakaha.
Somo Bhutva Rasatmakaha. Permeating the earth, I support the beings with my vigor and nurture the vegetation by infusing their sap with my power in the form of soam.
Okay. Now he's getting even subtler. He says, yeah, we are all sustained. Everything in this world is sustained by what? Sustained by earth, right? So he started with the subtler aspects. Now he's getting to the most the grossest of all the elements, which is represented by earth, right? Says the power through which, the vigor through which, the strength through which earth bears our weight, physical, metaphysical. That entire weight, that power, where does it come from? It comes from me. I give that power. I give that vigor. I give that strength. तो अगर अर्थ को वो पावर स्ट्रेंथ और विगर भगवान जी दे रहे हैं तो हमारा सारा स्ट्रेंथ पावर और विगर कहाँ से आ रहा है? Obviously from, right? And then he says that Lord is the one who sustains all life. He's the one who nourishes all life. How? Through the sap. He nourishes the sap of the vegetation, the sap of the herbs. So they say that the moon को सोम कहते हैं, सोमरस, right? So the moon की जो lights होती हैं, they are supposed to be very good for the sap of all the plants. Okay, so he says that so he gives that power into the sap, and that plants are eaten directly by us for all our nourishment, or they are eaten by the animals that are then eaten by other animals. Either way, the sustenance for everything comes from the plants, and those plants are sustained by Bhagwanji. The energy, the vigor in the plants is through the sap, which is nourished by Bhagwanji. So he is the sustainer of all life. So you know, when we consume something, it becomes a part of us. Correct? When we consume a food, it becomes a part of us. So the reason, for example, why we are told हर एक चीज की एक subtle energy होती है उसके अंदर. When we consume it, it becomes a part of us, right? And that is the very underlying principle of our Ayurveda. ये गर्म चीज है, ये ठंडी चीज है, ये खुश्क चीज है, ये liquidy चीज है, right? It becomes a part of us. So the reason they say there's no moral question about you should eat animals or not eat animals. There are animals that eat animals. Correct? But in us, we are told to abstain from non-veg because when you are eating an animal, when we eat that animal, वो हिंसात्मक action होता है. To kill an animal, you have to kill an animal to eat it. That hinsa, that violence, becomes a part of that meat. When we are consuming it, that hinsa, that violence at a subtle level joins our energy, making us more violent in our thoughts, our actions, our deeds. Now, that is not to say that all vegetarians are very calm and composed people. Of course not, right? But this is one source of violence in us. If we avoid it, then we have delineated one source of violence in ourselves and cleansed our energies to that extent.
Also, just to add a different layer here, if food alone from a physical form allowed us to live, then okay, physically you should be able to masticate the food, put it in the body, and the dead body should be able to function. But food alone is not enough. It is the powers within, it is the powers within the food, within our body, that builds the energy which is powered by him. So in in our scriptures, it said certain foods allow you, give you a better chance at controlling your mind and experiencing divinity. There are certain foods that are predisposed to making it tougher for you to control your mind and therefore experience divinity. So choice is yours.
And that is
And you
how
can
the
experience it either way. You should make the decision yourself, but know for a fact that what we are consuming and how it gets converted into energy, he has a very strong role to play in it. Just like his illuminating everything else.
and that is why certain types of foods are so based on the energies that they have and the impact they have, the foods have on us. They are classified into sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic, right? And not just physical food. It is about everything we consume through our eyes, through our ears, and through our senses. Every sense, when we are watching something, what are we watching? When we are hearing something, what are we hearing? When we are consuming entertainment, what kind of entertainment are we subjecting ourselves to? Everything is sattvic, tamasic, or rajasic, depending on the impact it creates in us and what guna is on the ascendancy when we consume that. Okay? And he is the one who helps us in nourishing at every level. Right? Let's go to the next one.
No, let's do takeaways. No, full class.
I mean,
No.
one shloka we can do.
But we haven't read this shloka.
Oh, we have read it.
You have to read it.
We are in Virar fast mode. Only Mumbai people will get that.
The support of all beings and nourisher of the vegetation. In this shloka, the Lord says that the power with which the earth holds and supports all beings is in fact his power, which permeates the earth. The vegetation on which beings feed is also nourished by the Lord, who, in the form of soul, infuses their sap. The word soul stands for moon. It is believed that rays of the moon nourish the sap of the vegetation.
Should we go to 14?
Yeah, just watch. Yeah.
If we stop there anyway, flow 14 does require a certain amount of conversation, so we'll take it in the next class. This is actually pretty good. So then we'll take we close
you
the
take
class.
takeaways?
Takeaways, huh? Who wants to go first?
I can go if.
Yeah.
So for me, the first thing that I connected with was about the eye of discernment and how rather than looking at the world, I have to look within. And that's a takeaway that I want to find and want to practice about looking within and not getting fixated about the world around me. And also the power of vibhutis that I face in my life as to in whichever form it might come and I experience it, how I tackle with it is very important. Is it, do I get swayed with the flow or how I anchor myself through that power and how I experience it and control it with the help of Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga, being that anchor that I want to practice and keep.
Thank you.
I can go. Okay, you go. So I think for me today it is, I realized that, we still, I mean, our mind is still busy with, whatever is happening around us, we get too caught up with, who's saying what is happening in life. And I think quietening the mind is something that I really need to work upon. And so therefore, jap, swadhyay, daily practicing, daily reading of the shlokas. I started, but in between, it kind of fizzled out. But, to bring it back as a practice and do it no matter what, even if it's mechanical, in the beginning, I think that's my practice point.
So, see, there itself is an opportunity to do swadhyaya. Yeah. You have to really observe yourself कि start हम क्यों करते हैं कुछ भी चीज. What is going on inside of me when I get the enthusiasm to start a practice, anushtan, whatever it is that I say, I'll do reading of a shloka on a daily basis, as an example, right? You take that as an anushtan. You start something, and then it fizzles out. Why does it fizzle out? What is going on inside of me when I have to do that swadhyay, but I'm now not doing it and I'm doing something else, obviously, something else has replaced it, right? It's a moment of swadhyay. Even if you're not reading the shloka, if you're asking yourself that question and observing the feelings, the thoughts, what's going on inside of you, that itself is swadhyay, no? That's the real swadhyay. That is where everything you've read thus far actually comes into action. The rubber hits the road. That's where you're opening your boxes up and figuring out kya chal raha hai mere andar? Why am I not doing this? And that learning will show how that way of being is affecting you in every other part of your life. Right? Your way of being remains the same, whether it is for Gita or whether it is for something else. Right? So if your Gita Anushtan, your Swadhyay is going through ups and downs, then you're doing the same thing in other parts of your life too. Right? Maybe not every part of your life, but there are other parts of your life that are getting affected too. So that's your moment of swadhyay. You don't have to go far to start your swadhyay. Right? It's very clearly mentioned that we are all on a circle. We are all on the periphery of the circle. And beech mein Bhagwan ji hai. That's your self-realization. Whichever part of circle you are on, you can draw a radius from that to the center of the circle. So if you are in this moment where you're like, I can do swadhyay, that's a moment of self-realization from where you can reach self-realization. You're like, oh, I cannot do swadhyay, something else is coming up. That also is a part of swadhyay. Calmness is a part of swadhyay. Confusion is part of swadhyay. Right? Arjun Vishal Yoga. Even confusion causes him to get onto his journey of finding Bhagwan. Everything is a moment of ego. Thank you, sir.
I can. The one thing we discussed about today's class is how to experience a divinity. So to experience a divinity, you have to purify, constantly purify, work on ourselves first by reading scriptural things or contemplation or meditation. All those part of everyday life we have to go through. And it's not just learning the knowledge, we'll have to put that knowledge into use, the right thing, to attain the divinity.
Correct. And which shloka will tell us what are those things? How do we put it into action? What are the things that we need to let go?
We needed to get rid of our pride, expectation, and material desires, and the control of senses. We have to do all those things to purify internally.
Beautiful. Shloka, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Go next.
Yes.
My point also, the knowledge not implemented is inflation of ego. So we have to be constantly self-aware and also to self-reflect moment to moment whether how the mind is working, whether there is a whether it creates, am I really putting the knowledge, implementing it? So that is my takeaway. I think it is very powerful because most of the time it just fizzles away. So that is my takeaway. And one more thing, how we are saying about the sun and in yoga, how it sun is very important, and do the sun, we had to water the sun. in the morning, it has that meaning of like, when there's reflection in the water, it works on our chakras.
Correct.
So all the chakras will get like, activated in the morning. Just I thought.
Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you.
I'll go next. So this Shloka 11, where we talked about laying a strong foundation. So this involves a lot of things, like you said, seva, karma yoga, bhakti, and also cleansing of our antakaran. So like we have started reading Gita from 3 years. Little bit has started since then, but what about so many years before that? So like I have gained so many impurities during that time, or maybe lifetimes before that also, like desires, anger, or whatever it is. There are so many things. So to lay that strong foundation, that is the important thing. And yeah, I'll work on that. And then this subtle things which we talked about, how the divinity is in everything. We see God, everything is His grace, and that is really true. But it's like we don't think about it every day, how our body works, the beauty of the person, how we what we talked about, like the person, how the person behaves, or how the person actually is, not the physical thing, but that beauty comes from the divine. So all these subtle things about seeing His grace in everything, in sun and moon and everything around us. It's everything, it's everywhere around us, but still we don't see it. So that much I have to work on myself to see those things. Yeah.
Very nice.
Amazing.
Exactly. And how do we see it? Through Shloka 10 and 11. Yeah. We don't see it because we are involved in our senses. Shloka 10. If we were not involved in our senses constantly, we'll be able to see it. Then how do we make sure that we don't get involved in our senses, and achieve those 5 things that Anita mentioned? By tap, but purposeful tap, right? Tap, not material things, but for the sake of, like with that Nishchayatmika buddhi. So we stay on the highway to God. Tap is very important. या तो हम तब अपने आप voluntarily करेंगे, या हम पर externally enforce होगा. ये आप याद रखो. तब के बिना कुछ जिंदगी है नहीं. So either you will, for example, in your office, either you will take on the work yourself, or somebody else will impose it on you. Right? So tap has to happen. Might as well do it voluntarily. स्वाध्याय voluntarily कर लें, और नाम जब voluntarily कर लें, तो खुद ही you will start to see so much other things. You will start to like develop that sense of discernment so much more. Otherwise, किसी दिन थप्पड़ लगेगा, फिर पता चलेगा. We know those, right? भगवान जी के जो 4 हाथ में क्या क्या होता है, right? So nice. Thank you.
My takeaway is God is existing in everything. So every action we should not think we are doing. So He is the doer within, is doing within us. So expectations and pleasure is like a, not like we have to take it out from every situation. So the highest goal is self-realization. Like every situation we have to think He is only doing, so the ego is not there. So but it's a bit difficult for every situation, so we have to like I have to go and pause every moment and then think about and do in every action. Yeah,
Correct.
that's my takeaway.
I think अब हम लोग सब now that we are implementing or trying to implement these things, I think by now I assume everybody has come to the conclusion that I'm not able to see divinity all the time. Correct? Everyone has come to that conclusion. Everyone has realized कि इतना ही मैं hard work कर लूं, right? I will keep faltering. I will do something for a certain amount of time and then I'll not be able to do it. Something will come up to stop my tap. Something will come up to provoke me, right? How much ever hard I may want. So at this stage, we've understood that Bhagwan Ji ki Maya is Duratatya, that he had explained to us in an earlier chapter. My Maya is Duratatya. If I am this powerful, how can my Maya not be powerful? It is impossible to get past his Maya and this delusion, except when we devote ourselves to his feet. The only fish that does not get caught in the net of the fisherman is the one that is at his feet. Every other fish gets caught in the net. So the only way for us to do our swadhyay and to implement that swadhyay is by making sure that we are surrendered to him and are constantly just remembering him. That's why Nam Jap is so important. Thank you, Visa.
I'll go next. I think my key takeaway was is that everything is a perception. So it's how we perceive things, and for that, if you can reduce the chatter in your mind and reduce the extreme busyness that we are, when we are a little calmer, we are able to perceive things in a far more positive manner, and we can see his essence and grace. So I think that that is very important, and I think one practice which a lot of people do, and which they always say benefits them, is when they wake up before the entire family wakes up. So that extra maybe half an hour or 20 minutes, that peace, when you start your day with peace, with little bit of thought, I think that adds to your overall experience of the day, when you can start it with quietness, reducing the chatter, and then you can experience better things more. You can perceive things in a better way.
Correct. And if you start your day earlier than others and spend that time in doing your swadhyay, doing a bit of puja, that is the best way to start your day, because you start yourself by anchoring yourself to God, by surrendering yourself to God, and by remembering that these are the principles with which I want to live my life. And at the end of the day, nothing else, even if you make all the mistakes, right, you will be aware.
Yeah.
And where there is awareness, there is improvement. That is where the pain dissolves. It dissolves in awareness. Okay, thanks. And by the way, that sentence that you said, no, that everything is in perception, it's a very powerful statement. And I'll change this a little bit by saying that everything exists in communication. Perception is born of communication inside of us and outside of us. So perception is our internal communication. This world exists. Like Abhinav said at the very beginning of the class, there is no reality that we interact with. We do not interact with the reality. We only interact with and respond to and act with only and only our perception of that reality. Right? And with that, we create our worlds through our actions. So everything in this world is a matter of communication inside of us, with which then and that becomes the starting point of our communication outside in the world. Yeah. So you can literally say that this world exists in communication. So if I can control my Vani, if I can control my communication inside and outside, I can control the world around.
Yeah.
Right? Thanks.
Yeah, I can go next. To me, the 1513 is very surprising. The entire Shatak was talking about like I empower the vegetation, right? It's so simple but so powerful. So without vegetation, there is no sustenance. But it's as simple as that. We are not even considering how we are, with the grace of God, how we are living our day to day. Anything that we are using, it's going to be powered by God, essentially. But the subtlety they put in and dedicated a shloka for that is surprising. So if you could if I could remember that on a daily basis, that like, okay, God powers the plants or vegetation, that sustenance for the entire universe, right? So that's a key for me today.
Thank you, Vijay. So Rishabh is joining the class from now. He was earlier the part of our class, but his circumstances didn't allow him to continue with the class and he left it in the middle, but he has constantly been talking about joining back. And yeah, today he's here with us. He's been added to the group. So welcome, Rishabh. We are very happy to have you amongst us.
Hi, very good to be back. Thank you.
Amazing. So it's a testament of your effort and constantly being in that space of like, oh, I want to come back to this, that allowed you to come back here. So very happy to have you here. And as you've seen that the format of the class is a little bit different from what you had seen earlier. So we do the class and then we like to dedicate 15-20 minutes to our takeaways because now we're all, more grown up. And so now it's all about not just acquiring knowledge as much as it is about implementing that knowledge. And takeaways helps to sort of, verbalize. And when you verbalize, then it also sinks in deeper. That is why the concept of takeaways, because it helps us do that manan for what we got. And so we always do swadhyay and then the shravan, then manan. So takeaways help in doing that manan. And then comes the nididhyasan. Nididhyasan is taking this manan into actual daily life and actually implementing it. So that is very crucial part. Shravan alone is useless. You might as well not just do it, right? So that is why Shravan must be followed by manan, must be followed by nididhyas. That's the format we have.
Right.
So from next class onwards, you can also share the takeaways.
Oh, you can share now.
If you want, if you have a takeaway, happy to hear that.
Yeah, actually, I liked, how when you were talking about experiencing God all around you, experiencing His effulgence all around you, you explained it with one of these examples of how every action is only meant to clean your antarkarant. The moment you link your actions, your current, with the outcome, positive outcomes you've achieved, it leads to building of ego, because then it automatically leads one to believe that I have the power to influence things. I act and I achieve. So I think that's a very interesting and powerful learning for me today.
Very nice. Thank you. All right, everyone. Have a great Janmashtami.
So let's do closing shlokas. ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनां सर्वे सन्तु निरामयां सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः See, we started takeaways and look at the time. So Tuvina and I recently did the MBTI thing. And we're
Can I stop this?
yeah,
I should
yeah.